it's a very sad time. It's the last set of lightning talks for this year. But we do have 6 fantastic talks lined up for you. And because it's only a short session, because it's only half an hour, we had to really kind of pick the top 5. So I have high hopes for this session. So Ian is already ready to go. So it only remains for me to say we want to keep that energy to the last minute. I usually, about halfway through each lightning talk session, have to remind you that the reward for these speakers' hard work is an enormous amount of noise when they finish speaking. But I haven't had to do that this year because you have been fantastic. You have been the most awesome PyCon UK audience I think I have done this in front of. So give yourself a massive round of applause while I leave the stage. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. This is a 5-minute summary of my 25-minute talk I tried to give earlier. So this is either the best or the worst bits, depending on how well it goes. So with no further ado, right, we'll cut to the sexy image. If there's one image you remember from my talk, that's the one. If we'd had some, if I got to do the interactive code to generate that image, it's only really about 5 lines of code. We have a pandas data frame, 63 million rows in it, 1 for each person in the UK. We decide how many pixels we want our image to be. I guess this was 700-ish by 400-ish, something like that. We go through each of the 63 million people, work out which pixel are in, and we count the number of people per pixel. That's all pretty easy. 2D array of integers. Then we apply a very non-linear color map to generate an interesting picture like this. So high colors, so high densities of people, say in London, are yellow end of this fire spectrum, and low densities, say the middle of Scotland, are almost black. And if you know anything about UK geography, you can clearly see, if I get my mouse kit, so obviously London, we've got Birmingham, we've got Manchester, Liverpool, we've got Leeds, Sheffield, Newcastle, Glasgow, etc., Cardiff down here. And this is using data shader, I should say, hence the logo. We can also render categorical data. So there's an extra column in the pandas data frame, which is highest qualification that people answer as part of their census questions. It's divided into 4 levels, which are named in a very strange way. I've just converted them to colors here. So the idea is we count the number of people per pixel in each of the different categories, and then we do a sort of a weighted combination of the colors corresponding to those categories. It's quite intuitive to look at. To explain takes more than 20 seconds, so I won't bother going much further. But what we've got here then is red colors mean degree or higher, so probably most people in the audience are probably red. Yellow is A-levels, green, light blue, through to dark blue are either GCSEs or no qualification. So first observation is yellow means university. Now I didn't think of that until I saw this image. But generally, people don't just get A-levels and then stop. They get A-levels on their way to going to university to get a degree. So where would you find all the people with A-levels in April when they answer the census questions? They're going to be at universities. So we have Bangor, it's clearly a university. Aberystwyth here. We've got Swansea. There's a tiny little bit in Llanelli. We have Cardiff. We have Pontypridd and Newport. The other interesting thing from my point of view, so we're pretty much in the yellow blob in Cardiff. I live in Caerphilly, which is sort of up here, on the edge between what I call the affluent Cardiff professional area, which is here, and the Welsh Valleys, which are definitely lower levels of qualification. So there is a story here about Industrial Revolution and the closure of the coal mines were still left in the Welsh Valleys with quite levels of deprivation. If you end up getting A-levels and you live in the Welsh Valleys, you probably come to Cardiff to get a degree, and you don't take that qualification back to the Welsh Valleys because you want to get a decent job and they're not really available there. What else can data shader do? Just giving you very simple examples. There's a few more pretty pictures there. Left-hand one is polygons, which are buildings, I think. The middle one is a strange attractor, so it's sort of a fractal generated image. And the right-hand one is lines, but using like an edge bundling algorithm, so it combines the lines into a nice, interesting form. But basically, they're pretty pictures. That's what it's all about. We can use Dask or CuPy if we want to have even larger data sets and get even better performance. I would have shown you interactively using a different library built on top of datashader called hvplot. That would give us interactivity. So then we can zoom in to look at more detail. So you would start off with a big picture of the UK, select your zoom area, it zooms in, it re-renders using datashader, rescales, so you get a finer resolution. Very useful for exploring data. Final slide, there's my contact information. Email, feel free to email me with questions or abuse for not being able to produce a decent talk earlier. There's a GitHub repo if you're really interested. Primarily, we're going to try and record a video at some point, and hopefully we'll get links to everybody here so you can see the actual thing in the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian. So Adam, you're next. Always like to talk with pretty pictures because I'm not smart enough to understand the words. That's because I'm a yellow, by the way. And we have a talk on imposter syndrome after this one by George. Is George? You're also in the front row. So yeah, not all of us are reds. So hopefully we'll get this set up pretty quickly because we're pretty tight for time. Has anybody seen the film The Tractor? I've heard it's pretty good, but I haven't actually seen the film. I have seen the trailer. How you doing?
More tractor jokes.
No, I've got to eke them out. There's more gaps. So yeah, you could just ask Harry what he was doing. You all right, Harry? Sorry. No heckling the audience. Right, Adam is ready to go. So take it away, Adam.
Hello. I just wanted to show some photos of the fantastic time I've been having here at PYCON UK. So I got off at the train station, came here to the Cardiff City Hall, watched some talks, some lightning talks, socialized with some people, and we went out for dinner, had some drinks, ended up at Tiny Rebel, did the same the next day, saw some talks, socializing at lunchtime around those red tables that we all remember, out in the park getting a coffee, a bit more chatting and coding with some people, saw some more lightning talks with crazy visuals, and now I've ended up on the stage. I'm looking out at you all here today. Who enjoyed my photos? Time to come clean, those were all fake. Some of you may have guessed, or those at the back may not have been able to notice. They were all generated with Stable Diffusion, which is one of these image-generating AIs. So take, for example, this one. This is based on a real scene. I was sitting with my friend John at dinner, and I described, Python developer in burgundy jumper drinking a beer at a Thai restaurant. Ended up with this. John had a look at it and was impressed / dismayed. So yeah, there are these image generation models out there. You may have seen that this year has been like when they've really taken off. There's the DALL-E and Imogen ones, which are kind of commercial ones. Stable Diffusion came out a month ago, and it's a free one. It's a bit worse than the others, but the advantage is it's a 4 GB model you can run on your laptop. It took 30 seconds to generate each of those pictures, and I'm sure it's going to be optimized at some point. We do need to be aware, obviously, fake imagery is just going to increase from this point onwards, and the inherent bias is really strong. So if you ask for a Python developer, you're going to get a male Python developer. You have to put the word female Python developer in, at least with all the sample runs I've seen. So that's not great. They are ethically concerning. They can be used to generate all kinds of things, as I've put on this slide here. But that slide was also generated by an AI. This is the GPT-3 text model. We gave it the headline, and it wrote the rest. Impressive. So fake text, also a concern. That said, they can be a lot of fun. Here are a couple fun pictures I've generated. I was going scuba diving. I imagined what it would be like if my dog could come with me. I put in yellow Labrador scuba diving. This is one of the best outfits I came up with. Brilliant. And my wife came up with the idea of a Dachshund dressed as a hot dog. Unfortunately, it came out dressed up as a ketchup container. Still pretty cute. So yeah, you can go run Stable Diffusion yourself. If you search for it, you'll find how to run it. I also got pointed to a GUI that makes it really easy on macOS. There are free places online as well. So yeah, go have fun. Hope it gets your creative juices flowing.
Thank you very much, Adam. I knew that was a bait and switch talk, but I didn't realize it was 2 baits and switches. So the next talk is George. Come and get set up, George. And after George, we will have Alexander, who's going to talk about a topic dear to my heart. Yeah, we might. How are we doing? This is the Mac. It's not going to take too long. Hey, I shouldn't have said that out loud. So, I'm going to save that one for later. So I don't know, was anybody outside earlier when the tractor drove past with a farmer on the back shouting, "The end of the world is nigh"? I think it was Farmageddon. That's a new one. I get a few more every year, which is good because next year is going to be a 5-day conference, so we're going to have to fill some more gaps. I keep thinking of things to talk about, but for reasons that will become apparent later, I can't actually talk about them. So I'm a bit stuck for words this evening. So just kind of hoping everything goes well. Oh, we have stuff on the screen.
So this is the mirroring thing.
It's a mirroring thing.
Let's relax. We no idea how to access the settings.
Okay. Nearly there.
More tractor jokes.
So, yeah, I don't have that many more tractor jokes. I think it's probably become apparent over the last couple of days, the thing I really like about PyCon UK, about Python conferences in general, is the community, but I won't bore you with that as I step off the stage and let George
Appreciate it.
give his talk.
Hey guys, so my name's George. I'm a senior software engineer at Wazoku, and I'm here to give a talk that's titled "How to Keep Calm and Dev On." So let's get right into it. So this is me. So picture this, right? You're a developer, and a meeting is called stand-up, and somebody reports a body, a bug, and no one has looked at git blame yet, but you recognize that code and you realize it's yours, and it's only a matter of time before people realize that you're an imposter. So how many times have you guys experienced this? Put your hands up if you've ever felt like an imposter. And everyone's hands should be up here. Okay, awesome. So we all know this problem. We can all empathize. So how do we deal with this? I think one of the strategies that I think really helps me is to celebrate our accomplishments. So I think too often we do a lot of work and we never think about the things that we actually do, especially as a team. Like sometimes we do giant projects and we just move on. We never stop to think and celebrate, go out for a drink. And okay, maybe you didn't solve P versus NP, but that doesn't matter, right? You don't have to do something big to feel good about yourself. So that's the first solution. And I think the second thing is also sharing your knowledge. Like, I've seen a lot of presentations the last couple of days here, and they've been fantastic, including the lightning presentations. And I felt a little bit intimidated, to be honest, like getting up here. I was like, I don't know what to really talk about. And so I decided to come up with this talk that would help me. And hopefully this will help you guys as well. Sharing your knowledge. I think people don't realize, just because you don't know something technical, you might know something else that can help people. And just the act of sharing that is going to help others, and that's also going to make you feel better. But also try to stay humble, right? Because at the same time, just because you know something that someone else doesn't know, doesn't mean that you're better than them, and that also works the other way around. So managing complexity, we are in an industry that's quite complicated. So we're all familiar with time complexity, space complexity, lines of code, psychomatic complexity. But how do we digest that, right? So obviously we do not refactor all the things. We've seen talks of trying to manage the technical debt, and I think we've all come towards the end of a project and realized, I probably could have written this better. that's okay, right? Things don't have to be perfect. You don't have to delay the release all the time. You could acknowledge it. Sometimes having a little bit of technical debt and just working like slowly over time to fix that is much better than constantly like slowing down, delaying the releases just to try and fix everything and have everything perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. And this is a term I came up with some friends called micro-complication. So just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. So these two pieces of code are actually they just output hello world. And they're pretty cool. But sometimes I think, at least for me, like I just end up getting like too zoned in when I'm doing a piece of work, and I don't stop to think why I'm doing it. Maybe it's cool like to have really complicated decorators, but maybe you don't need to use that, right? Like, so I think just taking a step back sometimes and looking at our architecture and looking at the bigger picture of why you're doing something can like be really helpful just to not lose yourself in this complexity. And last but not least, I want to talk about debugging. So when we think of like debugging, we think of like the machine, we think of the interpreter, we think of the compiler, but we rarely think about the author, right? The human element of this. And I want to bring you some strategies on how to manage debugging ourselves. Now, it's quite complicated. I don't know if human beings are Turing machines, but one thing that helps me is, so for those of you who can't read that in the back, that says need for sleep. In the style of like Need for Speed. Sleeping is a great practice. I think sometimes I tend to forget to sleep a lot. I'll end up working late in the evenings, and I think we all share that, where we think we can finish something towards the end. But actually just taking a break, having a nap, sleeping, waking up in the morning, many times I think we've all shared the same experience where we actually come up with a solution that's far, far less complicated than what we thought it was. So get some sleep. It helps me. And garbage in, garbage out. Maybe we're not machines, but at the very least, the input that we put into ourselves also affects the output that we have. I think we all think of like news that we might be consuming. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world, but you don't have to know about everything. And sometimes we can pick and choose how to manage that, right? Because there's a buffer. It's very easy to overload ourselves. And food, I'm not going to tell you what to eat. I'm just going to say make sure you eat. It's very easy to forget eating, so highly recommend that. That's a great strategy for me. And last but not least, attend PyCon, right? This has been an amazing experience. My first presentation ever, first conference that I've been in. I've met some cool people. Try to interact with the community. I think this profession could be quite lonely. We work with computers all day, and you don't realize like we're not computers, right? We're people. I think just like seeing that there's other people out there who know things that you can learn from, I think has really, really helped me. So last but not least, keep calm and dev on. Thank you guys.
Thank you, George. There's some fantastic advice there. I mean, that was basically all the stuff that I was just going to say anyway. So Alexander is our fourth speaker. And you came over from Switzerland, right? It was you I was talking. Yeah. So.
Also, you can use Alex because we don't have that.
I can't do it. Okay. Why didn't Farmer Knuth switch careers and become a traveling salesman? The commute was intractable. Thank you. Thank you, Larry. So I met Alexander at lunch yesterday, and it turns out this is his first technical conference, was that right? And when he was looking for a Python conference to go to, he was trying to decide which one to go to. And this isn't the easiest one to get to, because he's from Switzerland. But he actually watched a YouTube video of the lightning talks and caught a bit about the Pac-Man rule and realized that we were an inclusive environment, that we might stand in circles with gaps and invite newcomers into our community. And that made his decision to come to PyCon UK, which I thought was a pretty cool story, and makes it all worth it. So yeah, the last day, as you can tell, is always a little bit stumbling on my part. It's I kind of run out of the things to talk about, so I always hope that the technology works. But yeah, we are more or less there, which is great. I agree with this, by the way. So it's the coolest keyboard. So,
Okay,
Alexander.
so who in here has strong opinions on keyboards? Okay, a bunch of you. Okay, I hope you'll still talk to me after this. I think you probably will, because it's a pretty cool keyboard. Okay, so we know some of the keyboards, right, that exist. There's like the the standard one that you get and then you replace it with like a mechanical one as soon as you can, to the annoyance of your coworkers because you like the clickety-clackety keys. You might even go further and you get really into keyboards and you're like, oh, I want to be as ergonomic and as fast as possible. So you get like a split one with like your own little macros in it and so on. But what if I told you there is something even better? There's the coolest keyboard in the world, right? Because some people with their keyboards, they're like, oh, I can type 120 words per minute. I'm so good. I'm like the fastest programmer ever, which means I write the best code. But actually, if you go by that metric, so you all probably seen over the last few days all these nice little subtitles that I'm getting subtitled right now. And people speak between like 150 to 250 words per minute. So try typing that with your cool little keyboard. It's probably not going to work. What you need for that is the coolest keyboard ever. This is a stenotype, and this is the keyboard that is currently being used to type out what I'm saying over there by our STTR people, which I can tell you stands for speech-to-text reporters. And how this works is pretty simple. You can see this is the layout of the keyboard. And you can write code with this as well. It needs a bit more work if you want to write code. I don't know if it's worth it, but it's definitely fun, I think. And what you do, you have the bottom part, which is the vowels, and then you have the left part, which are some consonants, and then the right part, which are also consonants. And you type words from left to right. So usually you type the starting consonants, then some vowels, and then some end consonants. And you type it at once. So to the right, you kind of see the output of that keyboard. So each line is a single output. So you type a chord, right? So you press, for example, the first line there. You press P, R, A, and F as a chord, so at once. And that then becomes a word. But how does that become a word? In the past, the people that were typing this, they knew what they were spelling out. It's usually a phonetic spelling. So for example, if you go down the third line, TH, that just means this, right? TH and then EUS, that's this, spoken out. But nowadays, we don't need to go back and translate this ourselves. We can have computers to do it for us. So what we basically do is we have a dictionary, or a set of dictionaries actually, with a lot of words in it, and the mapping to those phonetic spellings. And then we give it our input, and it takes those weird jumbles of chords that we put in and puts out the text that you can see scrolling by on those screens. And this is what allows us to type at those very fast speeds. And the dictionaries actually grow quite large. Like I had a talk with our STTRs in the morning, and one of them told me that her dictionary currently has 70,000 words, and they need to know what phonetic spelling maps to what word, because all those dictionaries are their own dictionaries that they've built over time. You start with like a basic one, but over time you add stuff. And that's also why you get asked to submit the words you're going to use, if they're technical terms, because if they don't have the terms in the dictionary, they have to actually spell it out, like letter by letter, and that takes way longer. So please submit those things to make their lives easier. Little confession, I didn't do that. I didn't have time. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So if this led you to be interested in maybe trying out the ultra speed, so if you have anyone at work that is always bragging about how fast they type, you can show up with one of those bad boys and then show them what you can do. You can also use a normal keyboard, just map them to the keys. And there's a really cool project called Open Steno Project. So up until 2007, I think it was, you could only learn this if you were on the track to become like a courtroom reporter, because that's also where they're used. And it was kind of like a secret club, and it was quite expensive. But someone started this, and it's a small community now where you can first of all learn how to use it, and they also have a free engine that does the whole translating with a dictionary for you. So you should definitely check this out and then impress all your developers with your extremely cool new keyboard. Thank you.
Great job. Michal, you'd like to come up? Oh, yeah. While Michal is setting up, I will tell you that I actually own two stenotypes. I don't know how to type on either of them. every so often I go back and try and learn some more, but you know, I'm not really there at a sort of functional vocabulary yet. But it's very cool when you do find that you know how all the mnemonics for a sentence. So we're nearly there. This is our second to last lightning talk of the evening. Anybody who looked at the board earlier today will know that we have a secret, a mystery sixth talk coming up after Michal. You're counting down at the moment?
I'm doing the magic.
Oh, I see. You're doing magic on the HDMI cable.
Yeah, cool.
And that's what you want? Awesome. Michal, take it away.
Okay, so I was too lazy to make slides. Is that visible? Hopefully. Yeah, should be fine. So, I wrote a programming language yesterday. It took me about 47 minutes to do it, and I really hope it's one of the worst things you have ever seen. Now, its implementation is about 30 lines of Python code, and the inspiration was Perl. Because Perl is, well, yeah, everyone knows what Perl is. Well, if don't, Google is a camel, it works, basically. It's a general-purpose language. I have not implemented most things on it, but it's a nice language. It's completely unreadable. It's impossible to debug. If you have a problem, well, good luck. You just need to be a great programmer and never have bugs. It's great. It doesn't have any keywords. It has a single letter, and, well, you just deal with it. How I was inspired to do it yesterday? Well, for a lightning talk, but I was inspired by Perl that has this idea of 99 bottles of beer. So this is something that generates a song, 99 bottles of beer. And actually, let's see how this is written. So 99 bottles of beer in Perl is this piece of code. And I was annoyed. Python cannot do it. Python is a good language. You cannot do such ugly code. It's difficult. So I decided I would write the VVV language, which is Python implementation, and that's the full code. It's distributed as a package, and you do it by taking your phone, making a photo of the code, and typing it yourself. And it's great. Now, the first, let's test it. So there's a simple piece of code. So this is the code. This is a simple equation. It does 2. Do you see? The 2 is the 2 letters together there in brackets, and a 3. So this is 3 plus 2, and 3 plus 2 is, well, 3, let's see, 5. Oh, it works, yeah. Now let's see another one. Let's do strings. So there's something that types ABC. So this types ABC on the screen. So let's see if it works. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, works. And now, finally, to replicate Perl, I wrote the VVV as 99 bottles of beer in Python. Let's see. So that's the bottles, this time twice. And then, well, I have not implemented the for loop yet, but it's getting there. If you put more bottles, you can more and more and more and more and more. So yeah, it's a great language. We'll have a conference about it. The VVV conference, it will be 23rd, 27th of November, 2097. It will be there. It's a great language. I called Paddington, the hotel in Paddington, to do it. I called them about 5 minutes ago. They told me it's too much in advance, but I'll call them tomorrow again to make sure it works. So yeah, thanks, folks. I hope it's fun.
That was great. That was great. Thank you, Michal. It's OK, just leave it there. Oh, no, it's fine. Because I'm going to pick it up anyway. So I have a laptop over here. So while we're all waiting, what's big and red and would kill you if it fell out of a tree? It's a tractor. You heard it before. So hopefully, is that coming through? Any moment now? Just thinking about it. It's not. There it is. So I'm abusing my power, basically, by taking over the last lightning talk slot, because I don't really get to give lightning talks anymore, and that was actually how I started with speaking, was giving lightning talks. I like the kind of 5-minute format. I haven't set a timer, so I don't plan to kind of clap myself down or anything like that. We're actually running over, so I'm completely abusing my power at the moment. So I asked myself the question, what makes the PyCon UK? And obviously, it's coming to see talks about important topics like unexploded bombs. They kind of set the theme for a whole conference. People are talking about bombs for peace as well. This is really why our employers send us to PyCon UK, if they do send us to PyCon UK, is to come and learn things from our peers in the Python community in the UK. On top of those technical talks, we also have personal talks that may be useful to other people in the room, discovering things about themselves. We have fun talks about people writing Python code that draws a straight line. And then going off on an epic trek across Cardiff. We have talks about art, where we see code that generates beautiful pictures. We had spoken word art at this conference, and if I could make a change for future years, I would very much like to see kind of more singing and dancing and music on this stage. So please bring those ideas to PyCon UK. We had talks about friends that we've lost in the recent past. I've been brought to tears twice at PyCon UK in the lightning talks, and this is one of those talks. It makes it very difficult to get on the stage afterwards and tell jokes, I will tell you that. But it's not just about the talks. One of the things that makes PyCon UK is also the audience. It's you, and I really appreciate all of these photos, by the way, were taken by our photographer, Mark, which is why they're so beautiful. I am nowhere near as good at taking photos like this. So this is the trick when you have an audience where some members are wearing yellow lanyards and may not want their photo taken, is you take a picture of the audience from the back of the room. And also, like this, as well as the people, this shows the space. I mean, this is the most fantastic space for a conference. I absolutely love it. Anytime you look around, there is another thing that you haven't seen before in this hall. It's about the friends that we meet, hopefully again in future years. I have people that I see maybe once a year, and I've really missed it during the COVID times, actually seeing some of these people who may not live close to us. Tim came here with his pattern shirts from Australia, and we're really grateful that he did. PyCon UK is also made up of the sponsors. As has been mentioned a few times, this conference would be unaffordable if we didn't have sponsors. So it is your duty as a community to go and talk to the sponsors and find out what they do. Maybe they'll surprise you, even if you didn't initially think you would be excited by the things that they have to say. PyCon UK is also one of these spaces where we invite people who may not have been to a PyCon before. I very much like the things that Anne said this morning about the fact that we will always have a creche, even if no people bring their children, but I very much encourage you to bring your children. My daughter has been to 2 PyCon UKs and made a complete nuisance of herself, and yet children are still welcome here, so I appreciate that. We have the buckets. This is another thing that makes PyCon UK, is the fact that we try to make ourselves an environment for people to try things out that they may not have tried before. This is essentially a training ground for future PyCon UKs. It's that by encouraging people to give a short talk on something that they're enthusiastic about, hopefully we inspire them to come back and give a longer talk about something that inspires them. And this is not a mistake. This is something that's very conscious. This is something that is repeated every day of every year that we run PyCon UK, and I've always particularly liked this slide. What this slide says is that we will support our speakers on the stage. This is not a combative environment. I don't like public speaking any more than anyone else, but I know that when I stand in front of you, I'm being supported by this wonderful community, and I really appreciate that. Again, we have the code of conduct, which says to people who haven't been to PyCon UK before they even get here, that this is a place that will respect them as people, no matter what kind of people they are. And again, the code of conduct is something that we take very seriously and we enforce. And finally, through these slides, is the ladies and gentlemen slide, the toilet talk that gets mentioned every morning, where, again, we reinforce the fact that people are allowed to be themselves in this environment, no matter who they are. I wanted to put in some slides that some photos ideally, that represent the organizers and the volunteers. But I just couldn't find a photo that kind of really encapsulated them. But I am not really an organizer of this conference. I was forced to wear this lanyard. I just turn up at the start of the conference, and I get up on the stage once a day and just kind of witter a little bit between the talks, as you've seen over the last 3 days. But my wife is an organizer. I'm also on the organizer's Slack, so I kind of see what's going on. And I was there back in February, where Anne posted a message to the Slack group asking if we thought that maybe it was time to run another in-person conference. And through pure force of will, she managed to drag an organizing team out of the primordial soup of COVID-19 and make a PYCON UK that consists of all of these things that I've mentioned and shown you photographic evidence of. And so I would very much like to call Anne to the stage, because as the director, you're always thanking other people, and you don't get enough thanks yourself. So if you'd like to come up, and Becky, if you'd like to come up as well. I have a slide for you as well. Yeah,
I still remember my hand on my head.
it's the power pose, is what that is.
We'll go with that.
So, thank you, everybody. So we have a small token of our appreciation. I was told that you're not that into flowers, but you do like gin. So I bought a suitably pretentious gin, but not too pretentious.
Excellent.
I don't think those are the words that you used when you described the gin that you like, but I'm adhering to the code of conduct. So thank you very much, everybody. I think I went slightly over time, but I hope you'll forgive me. And now I will hand over to Anne.
Well, we have to give you the round of applause.
I will take a round of applause.
I'm not going to stand behind the microphone. Look, I've learnt whilst I've been at this conference that I need to stand behind the microphone. I'm not going to plug my laptop in because all I was going to show was a slide that said the end, and I'm not going to spend the time faffing around with cables, etc. So thank you for those kind words. It is genuinely a team effort. Yes, I may have lit the fuse, but the firework wouldn't have gone off without all the other people that were involved. It is the end of our conference. It has been an amazing conference. I've thoroughly enjoyed it most of the time. In the run-up, I've definitely enjoyed it while I've been here. Some of the time in the run-up, it was perhaps a little bit stressful. But there are just a couple of words that I want to say before we finish. In my thank yous this morning, a couple of people that I did mention, but I just wanted to mention again, which is Sandy Walker and Christian Glass, both who have worked tirelessly in the run-up to the conference, in the full and certain knowledge that they weren't actually going to be able to be at the conference, and yet they've still given their time and their effort to make this work for all of us. So I would just like to say a big thank you to both of them. The other thank you that I wanted to make is for all the people that submitted a proposal in our call for papers but didn't have their talk accepted. We were in the situation this year that we had almost as many submissions as we had in 2019, and yet our capacity at the conference was much reduced. It was a single track. It was 2.5 days. We really appreciate the fact that you put in your proposal. It was really difficult to get just the ones that we were able to deliver. So please do submit your proposal again next year. We do appreciate the time and effort that you put into doing that, and there will be another round next year. Which kind of brings me on to my final note. We have just hot off the press agreed with Cardiff City Hall the date for PYCON UK 2023. So get your diaries out. We will run from Friday the 22nd to Tuesday the 26th of September 2023. And you will notice that that is a 5-day conference, and our ambition is for us to be back to what we have done previously. So it really just just remains for me to wish you all safe travels back to wherever you came from, however near or far that may be, and we'll see you next year.